mandates make a comeback and vaccine requirements gain momentum, it is time, once again, to talk about the science and the politics of the pandemic. Let's bring in tonight's Dream Team, Fox News contributors Leslie Marshall and Dr. Mark Siegel. Great to have you both back with us.
Hi, Shannon.
Hi, Shannon.
Okay, I want to start with this report breaking tonight from the Washington Post. They said they got some internal slides, a presentation being shared within the CDC. Among other things, they say showing that vaccinated people may spread Delta as easily as the unvaccinated. It says this, the presentation highlights the daunting task the CDC faces. It must continue to emphasize the proven efficacy of the vaccines at preventing severe illness and death, while acknowledging milder breakthrough infections may not be so rare after all, and that vaccinated individuals are transmitting the virus. The agency now must move the goalposts of success in full public view. Doctor, that is a lot to digest and a big burden now for the CDC, once again, to be probably coming to the public with information that at least appears to be in conflict with what they've told us to this point.
Yeah, Shannon, it's changing. And I talked to Dr. Walensky this week, head of CDC, and she laid it out for me in more detail than we may have heard so far. Look, here's the issue. The issue is that when you're vaccinated, if you get COVID, you're going to carry more virus than we thought. Not as much as the India studies showed, but more than we thought. So that means that symptomatic people who are vaccinated, maybe they get a stuffed nose or a cough or they feel fatigue, those people should wear a mask. Here's what wasn't in the guidelines, unfortunately, which is that asymptomatic people, they're not having any symptoms that were vaccinated. They are not spreading COVID. They are not causing cases. So you pretty much have to have symptoms if you're vaccinated to be spreading COVID. So I don't think people that are asymptomatic and vaccinated need a mask at all. I think those that are unvaccinated need a mask. Now, the other point you brought up about breakthrough cases, you're right. It's being underreported. I've checked with hospitals throughout the country and with medical providers, and there is definitely more breakthrough cases than we're hearing about or that CDC has yet announced. Why would that be? Let me tell you why. Because if the vaccine is 85% effective against the Delta variant, and you're in an area with a lot of COVID, there's a 15% chance that you're going to get it. But most vaccinated people are getting a much milder case. And another thing, last point, you said right before the president spoke today on the panel I was on with you, Shannon, that you were looking for a change in tone. Well, I saw it. I thought he was more humble and more emotional than he's been before. And I think emotion works in this situation. Never mind the mandates, as we've just reported tonight, all these mandates, all of this attacking and this arguing. But his actual tone was emotional. And he talked about something that we have not spoken about enough, which is the real purpose of taking a vaccine is to protect those around you from spread of this virus. He talked about somebody in the hospital that looked up to a doctor and said, I want the vaccine now, and the doctor said it's too late. That story is true. I have seen that, I have heard that, and that kind of story is what we need.
Yeah, there was a change in tone and certainly a full-throated appeal talking about mostly carrots, but some sticks. But the president also said something towards the end in the Q&A that caught my attention because a lot of people have said it's crazy, don't talk about a federal mandate. The government knows they can't do it. But here's what he said today.
It's still a question whether the federal government can mandate the whole country. I don't know that yet.
So, Leslie, that doesn't sound like it's off the table. It sounds like the White House is considering that possibility. We aren't just talking about federal employees. I think at that point he was talking about whether the government can say every able-bodied American has got to get vaccinated. And that's stirring up a lot of backlash. I mean, not just on the right, but among unions. Some of his biggest supporters and groups who say, we support the vaccine, but you can't tell people they have to have it as a mandate.
Well, Shannon, you know, as an attorney, that there's always a legal loophole or an exception to every rule. For example, in public schools in many states in this country, children are required to have certain vaccinations. I think you guys know I have 2 children. One is adopted. My son had to have 36 vaccines before he was allowed to enter the United States and get his visa to become a U.S. citizen. Whether I liked it or not, although there are religious exemptions for kids going to public school, there are, whether it's polio or chickenpox or measles or tuberculosis or hepatitis, the list goes on, there are vaccines that are required. Could it be that way from the federal government for federal workers in different states, not just in Washington, D.C., or for the public school system across that board in the future? It could be. I think it's too early to tell. I don't think that the president wants to politicize this further. I think, and I agree with the doctor and you, Shannon, I saw a different tone. I think that we all know that Joe Biden truly cares about people, and none of us want to see people die. And we are seeing vulnerable segments of our population, like children, being affected with this variant, which they're saying spreads quicker and is stickier in the lungs. That's what medical professionals say and the scientists say. So, again, a very fluid situation. People need to get vaccinated. Just one more thing to the doctor's point. You know, look, if you're not vaccinated, you should wear a mask. Sadly, I think people that refuse to get vaccinated won't wear a mask.
Well, and we will see, because again, as we're getting more and more numbers, and there's this case out of Massachusetts where they have been tracking a spread there, and I think they said 74% of the people that they tracked who have been spreading the Delta variant themselves were vaccinated. So it raises new questions for people, and certainly hurts a little bit of the messaging from the administration about, the efficacy of getting the vaccine. But, Doctor, as you've said, the whole idea now at this point should be to avoid serious illness and hospitalization, and the vaccines seem to be doing a good job with that despite the spread. Thank you both. I'm sure we'll have much more to talk about as this continues.
Thank you.
Thank you, Shannon.